Now that might look again like a bunch of notes, and you're going to have to go through each one of them and find out what the name of each one of them is, but that's not the case. If you can think in snowmen, it has a particular advantage over just reading note for note. And if you do know about it, you can read music much faster. We've talked about several different principles of musical notation, in particular the fact that alternating lines and spaces refer to the white keys of the piano. Now I want to tell you about one specific instance of this principle that happens so often, and the variations of which happen so often, that it's definitely worth it to know about it. And if you do know about it, you can read music much faster. So the special case I'm referring to is a line, a line, and a line, or a space, and a space, and a space. Now what this means is that I play every other note on the piano. So in this case, we see we have a middle C, that's this key here, and then every other white key. Or here, that would have been here, every other white key. Right? This structure we'll call a snowman, and we can call this the foot, the belly, and the head. And if you can think in snowmen, it has a particular advantage over just reading note for note. Let's say, for example, that I wanted to find this group of notes here. Now instead of figuring out the name of each one of these notes and then trying to find those keys at the piano, I could also just recognize that the middle one of these notes we know is a C, right? I'll draw the C's here that we talked about before. We use those as points of reference. And we can just see, that's a snowman, so I know it must be every other note, right? It must be something like this. And I see that the middle note is this C here, so it must be that. So in other words, I just have to identify one note, and the rest I get through the fact that it's every other white key at the piano. We could even use that to find something like this. You might think, oh wow, those notes are high, I don't know where all those notes are. You don't need to. You see that this is this river C that we talked about before, in other words, this key here. And then there's a snowman. So it must be that. You don't have to identify what these two notes are. You get them for free. Let's say we wanted to find something like this here. We might, again, think as our first thought, oh my goodness, that's so low, I don't know how to find those notes. Well, we see that this one note is just one higher than this river C here, which is here. So that's the highest note, and then I have a snowman. Right? And if I can always identify a snowman in any sort of group of notes that I see, then I have a big advantage. I can then use that snowman to find the notes quicker. For example, what if I had something like this? Now that's not a snowman, but there's a snowman in there, and I know where this note is, so it just looks like a snowman with 4 parts. It must be that. So you see that we can see a C as a sort of a mother of many similar structures. We could also have something like this. And we recognize that as being a snowman, line, 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 just that it happens go from low to high. Or we could have something like this. I see that there's a C in there, right? This is what I want to find here. I see that there's a C in the middle. So the first thought is, okay, well that must be a snowman with a C in the middle. But But then I see that the head is a little bit too high. Okay, so then I've already got these notes there. And of course, I could also add in a sharp or a flat anywhere if I wanted to. Let's say if I added in a sharp here. First thing I would do, so you said before, I can say, okay, well that's a snowman where C is in the middle. And then I just have to add in a sharp. So a sharp just means to raise the note and go that way. So that must be this here. Now you might recognize this as being a particular chord, but I want to emphasize here, I'm not talking about the word snowman as just being a sort of a baby word for the word chord. I am using a snowman really to be the structure a line and a line and a line, or space and a space and a space, which will of course usually turn out to be some chord or other. And if you don't know about chords, don't worry, we'll talk about that soon. The one thing you want to remember if you ever have accidentals like this, and accidentals is just the word that you referred to sharps and flats with, is to first read the structure itself, the snowman structure, and then add in the chord later. Add in the accidental later. So let's say I had this. So the first thing I'd want to do is say, okay, well, this note is pretty close to C. In fact, that's a good rule of thumb. Just which note is close to some C that I know somewhere. So this is right above C, that must be here. So first of all, I'm just going to play this snowman, and then I'll add in this accidental at the end. So let's put these principles into practice to show you a couple of things that might seem really crazy and difficult, but that are not that difficult if you're thinking of snowmen. Let's say you had that there. That looks pretty crazy, right? Well, it's actually not that difficult at all. If you remember, again, the C's that we talked about, which I'll draw in here again. You see that's just one higher than this river C here. We find that snowman, and then just add a sharp there. So that must be that. Let's do another crazy example. Let's say we had this and that. Now you might think, whoa, that low note looks very low and it's so far away from anything else that I know about, so there's no way I can find it. Well, it's not that difficult if you just recognize that this is a C and that this is actually just a snowman without a belly, right? So I have here, this is that C right there. This is what the snowman would be, and if I leave out the belly, then I've got that. What about if we do this? Let's say we have that. That might look difficult. Well, you just see that this note is one key above C. We have sort of a four-part snowman, and each one of them gets raised up with a sharp. So that must be this here. So let's do one last one. Let's say we have something like this. We'll make this one extra difficult. So we could see, and this is again an important way of going about it, recognize which note you know. We know that this is a C here. We know that one. So that's here. We see that this is a four-parted snowman, of which this one is a part. And then the upper note gets a flat, and the lower note gets a sharp. And there you have it. And how about one more? One more. Let's say we had something like this. Now that might look again like a bunch of notes, and you're going to have to go through each one of them and find out what the name of each one of them is, but that's not the case. You recognize that this here is our river C up here, and that we actually just have a snowman here, line, 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 And this snowman, the foot repeats itself, and the snowman goes up and then almost all the way back down. So there you have it.